With the Spurs and Knicks back in the NBA Finals conversation, this feels like the perfect time to talk about two former players who gave these franchises real edge: Stephen Jackson and J.R. Smith. Two wings with unlimited confidence. Two players who never saw a shot they were scared of. And two guys who could either save your season or make your coach lose his mind. Stephen Jackson's Spurs story starts before he became Captain Jack. Before the Warriors, before the podcast clips, he was a real piece on the San Antonio Spurs. When people talk about those Spurs teams, the names are usually Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. But Stephen Jackson mattered. The Spurs were disciplined, structured, quiet, efficient. Stephen Jackson was not quiet. He was tough, fearless, emotional, and in a playoff series, that mattered. During his Spurs years, Jackson averaged 8.7 points, 3.1 rebounds, and 1.8 assists across 179 games. So if you only look at the regular season numbers, you might miss the point, because his value showed up when the games got heavier. In the 2003 playoff run, Jackson became one of those rugged role players every championship team needs. He defended, he competed, he hit big shots, and in the NBA Finals against the Nets, he gave San Antonio real edge next to Tim Duncan. Game 6 is the one Spurs fans remember. David Robinson was playing his final NBA game. Tim Duncan was putting together one of the greatest closeout performances ever, and Stephen Jackson hit big fourth-quarter threes to help slam the door.
Duncan gives it up. Jackson for the first lead. Got it!
Now fast forward to New York, and J.R. Smith had a completely different kind of run. If Stephen Jackson brought edge to the Spurs, J.R. Smith brought electricity to the Knicks. And if you watch that 2012-13 Knicks team, you remember the vibe. Madison Square Garden was alive. Melo was cooking. The Knicks won 54 games. The orange headbands were everywhere. And J.R. Smith came off the bench like he had a personal green light from every basketball god in history. Step-back threes, contested jumpers, wild finishes, heat checks that made zero sense until they went in. During his Knicks chapter, J.R. averaged 15.1 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 2.8 assists across 213 games. So on the tail of the tape, J.R. had the bigger numbers in New York. He was the louder scorer, the bigger microwave, the guy who could turn a random second quarter into a Madison Square Garden event. But this comparison isn't just about who scored more. It's about what each guy represented. J.R. Smith gave the Knicks buckets and chaos. Stephen Jackson gave the Spurs toughness and a ring. J.R. was the better scorer in his Knicks years. Stephen Jackson was the bigger championship piece in his Spurs years. And that's why this matchup works. They were not the same player, but they lived in the same basketball universe, the irrational confidence universe. Stephen Jackson was more physical, more confrontational, more of a two-way fighter. He could defend wings, talk trash, and hit a shot with the whole season leaning on it. J.R. was more explosive, more stylish, more unpredictable. A heat-check scorer who could make a bad shot feel like a good idea. Stephen Jackson felt like a guy you wanted next to you in a playoff war. J.R. Smith felt like a guy who could win you a game before the defense even realized he was hot. And both had careers casual fans underrate. Jackson won a ring with the Spurs and built a reputation as one of the toughest wings of his era. J.R. became one of the NBA's great heat-check players, won Sixth Man of the Year in New York, and gave fans some of the wildest shot-making clips of the 2000s and 2010s. But right now, with Spurs versus Knicks back on the biggest stage, the San Antonio and New York chapters hit the hardest. Stephen Jackson represents old Spurs toughness, the championship standard, the role player who wasn't afraid of the moment, the guy who could fit into a dynasty without losing his edge. And J.R. Smith represents one of the last truly fun Knicks eras before this new finals run. The Garden was loud again. The Knicks were dangerous again. Every great team needs at least one guy like that. Someone who doesn't care how big the moment is. Stephen Jackson gave that to the Spurs. J.R. Smith gave that to the Knicks. Different numbers, different roles, same energy. And both of them were absolutely nice. Like and subscribe for more.